Alright, I'm actually going to do a movie review for Alien Covenant. Alien Covenant, of course, came out today, or where I saw it was late last night. I actually saw it in IMAX. So I figured jump on the bandwagon. It's probably going to be the number one movie this weekend. Let me give my thoughts and everything on it. First of all, um, the Alien franchise is a wacky one because you got the first two, which are absolute classics. You got Ridley Scott's Alien and James Cameron's Aliens. One's a horror movie, one's an action movie. They're both classics, American modern classics, right? And then the rest of the sequels just kind of just go off the wall, in terms of not being very good, and they're all not very good for different reasons. Alien 3 was a colossal disappointment. Alien Resurrection was just horrible. And then, do we need to talk about the Alien versus Predator movies? No, we don't. Um, so, after fucking up the franchise and seemingly killing it, Ridley Scott, the famed director Ridley Scott, said, you know what, I'm taking it back. I'm taking this franchise back. I'm going to show you all how it's done. And in 2012 came out with Prometheus. Blah. And Prometheus was supposed to be the prequel to Alien and exploring the mythology of the xenomorphs. And somewhere along the way, Ridley Scott got disinterested with it and decided to do his own thing with it and set it in the same universe, set it still before Alien, and instead of focusing on the xenomorph, focused on the space jockey that you saw in the original Alien that was in a chair when they found the ship on LV-426 with the eggs in it. You found a big dead space jockey in a chair, the eggs, drama ensues, yada yada yada. You know how it goes. So he came out with that movie, and a lot of people that was disappointed by it. It's probably one of the most divisive movies to come out in the past 5 years. I'm going to say that. And I can see why. Because since, if you date back to the year 2000, at the very least, that movie or that seed for that movie was in the works. And at that point, Alien Resurrection came out. It was horrible. It was the last movie up to that point. And James Cameron and Ridley Scott were going to both do an Alien 5. Of course, that didn't happen. And we got the Alien vs. Predator movies instead. And basically, after all that shit happened, Ridley Scott was still keen on the project, and he took it over, and he did the bait and switch. So after years and years of people actually wanting an Alien movie directed by Ridley Scott, what they got was Prometheus. And in my opinion, I like Prometheus. I'm able to admit the flaws in the movie. It's not a perfect movie by any stretch of the imagination. There are some stupid characters. Um, I think it gets a little too pretentious and grandiose for its own good, considering that it falls back on a lot of horror movie shit. But overall, I liked it. And I don't even know if I'm in a minority or not, because you could flip a coin whether if a person who's seen Prometheus likes it or not. I just happen to be one of those people. And at the same time, if you absolutely hate the movie, I 100% understand. So, when Prometheus was over, and a lot of people were confused or disappointed, um, it left room for sequels, because the plan was always to have like maybe a three movies, like a prequel trilogy almost. And it definitely left room for sequels. So, 5 years later, we get this movie, the follow up to Prometheus Alien Covenant. And right off the bat, you can tell Alien Covenant, that's the name of the movie. The xenomorph is on the cover. The xenomorph is on all the trailers. It is everywhere. And you could tell that Ridley Scott, I guess, listened to the fans. The fans wanted a Alien movie directed by Ridley Scott. So he said, okay, and he put, as far as the advertisement goes, the alien front and center. And that is sort of at the expense of the story that Prometheus told. Now, I really didn't mind, because if you give me the option of watching a movie about the space jockey or seeing something with the alien, even though the whole series is tired and worn out, so people say, I'm still going to choose the Alien any day over it because, look, I put it like this. Friday the 13th went like 10 movies before I got bored with it. You know, people that are fans of franchises like this, as long as the movies are good, they're going to keep watching it. It doesn't matter how repetitive it is. That has nothing to do with it. As long as the movies are palpable, people will watch it. The reason the Alien movies were failing is because the movies weren't palpable after the second one. You know, parts 3, 4 in the Alien vs. Predator movies were garbage. So after the mixed reception that Prometheus got, 5 years later, this is the follow-up. Ridley Scott said, you know, in various interviews that he learned from his mistakes. He listened to the fans. He thought that the Alien was done. It was cooked with an orange in his mouth. But the fans wanted the Alien, so he gave it to them in this movie. And this is the follow-up. It takes place 10 years after Prometheus. Basically, there's this ship called the Covenant. And this ship is full of columnists that are on a mission sent by the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, you know, the evil corporation throughout all the Alien movies, to colonize a planet and start a new life, a new home world. And there's 2,000 colonists on a ship. Most of them are sleeping, and our main crew is awake because they were awakened after the ship almost suffered really bad damage, you know, through a space storm or what have you. And basically they pick up a radio signal from a nearby planet that appears to have life on it. And they go investigate that planet, and that is when horror ensues. Now, like I said, this does take place 10 years after Prometheus. Prometheus ended on a cliffhanger, and this is, I guess, the result. This is the follow-up to that. First things first, though, because I'm not going to spoil the movie and this, you know, the storylines or the movie at all. So I'm just going to try to work around that and give my thoughts, my negatives, my positives. First things first, though, that if you're a fan of Prometheus, you might have a mixed bag on it. If you really like Prometheus, I don't know what to tell you if you're going to like or dislike this movie, because in many ways this is Prometheus too. In many ways this is, you know, this is that same type of movie, but in other ways you can tell that they did their best they could to sweep as much of Prometheus, the leftovers of Prometheus, under the rug as quickly as possible. There are many storylines that were left to be developed in Prometheus that either didn't get explained at all or were explained rather quickly in order to advance the plot of this movie, if that makes any sense. So, while this movie is very much the look and sort of the feel of Prometheus, especially the first half, it does its best to just... what's the word I'm looking for? It does its best to resolve all those issues from Prometheus just so it can move on from Prometheus and focus on being an Alien movie and focus on the franchise moving in an Alien direction instead of a Prometheus direction. So, to me, unless they explain some of the things that Prometheus brought up that could still be lingering around in the sequels, I'd be fine with that. But that's sort of a negative to me because to me it's just a little lazy that they didn't get to those things. God, it's kind of hard to talk about this without spoiling it. So this might sound confusing, but my apologies. What else I didn't like? The CGI. The CGI in it was wonky. Alright, this isn't a spoiler. I'm just going to say it straight up. The Xenomorph, the main alien, is 100% the CGI. Whatever reports there were that there was a man in a suit and they were doing... To me, the best technique you can do on movies is mix animatronic / suit with CGI. That's all bullshit. It's 100% CGI, and at times it looks good, but for the most part, when you see the Xenomorph and he's running like Sonic the Hedgehog at a super fast speed, it took me out of it, because the main problem most people have with CGI is that it adds no weight to whatever it's supposed to be there. So when the alien's flipping and flopping around, it sort of was giving me flashbacks to the Yoda fucking fight scene from Attack of the Clones, but that was a very minor issue. It kind of aggravated me, but it's something that really doesn't take me out of the movie. The movie is constantly doing a juggling act. I guess that's the only negatives I have is, before I move on, that it doesn't resolve. Pick and chooses what it resolves from Prometheus, and the stuff that it does resolve, it sweeps under the rug, and that the alien was CGI. Oh, and one more thing, that a lot of the characters are expendable. You heard that in Prometheus, but it's really true in this movie. A lot of characters, their whole sole purpose there is to just die. And they do die in good ways, but that was their whole purpose. But that's all the negatives I have. Positives. I thought that it did a good job of juggling between the, action style of Aliens, the horror style of Alien, and the existential stuff of Prometheus. The weakest it was in the horror section. It's kind of hard to scare people nowadays, especially when everybody knows what the alien is. But I mean, it tried. It did a good job. There were no jump scares other than the obvious one. To me, the ultimate jump scare ever, which is the facehugger jumping out the egg. It's hardly a jump scare anymore. We all know that the facehugger is jumping out of an egg. Acting. There was some good performance in this. Danny McBride, who's, a comic actor. Eastbound and Down. He's all the James Franco and Seth Rogen movies. He's a comedic actor. He knocked it out the park with this. I thought he was going to be the comic relief in the movie. He really wasn't, and he did a really good job. We have so many characters, but a lot of them there's just nothing to. You have Demian Bashir in it, and his character, is pretty much there to die, like I said, as is most of them. You have Catherine Waterston as Daniels, who, she did all right. She did a serviceable job. It wasn't nothing you'd ride home about. It was just like a bland Ripley. But it was serviceable. It wasn't good, it wasn't bad, it was just there. But the main tour de force in this movie, and the reason why most of the unmemorable characters really have no effect on it is because the main star of this movie is pretty freaking obvious, is Michael Fassbender as two different roles, as the android Walter aboard the Covenant and reprising his role as the android David from Prometheus. I'm not going to spoil too much because this movie is worth it just to see these two characters, especially David, play out on screen. Michael Fassbender does an amazing job and proves that he is the lead of this branch of the Alien franchise. Just incredible. There are certain scenes where I was so captivated. Put it this way, I was more captivated by what Michael Fassbender's characters were doing in the movie than any of the other monsters in it. There's this one particular scene where he is, I'm not going to say which character, but one of his characters is trying to convince another character to see his point of view on life, and it's deep. It's surprisingly deep for basically a monster movie like this. You could tell that's where most of the Prometheus material is coming from, is from his character, and it was just awesome. You thought in Prometheus you were left in a gray area whether he was a good or bad character, and I'm just going to say this much. You definitely get that answer in this movie. Like, there's no doubt about it where he stands, and he steals the show. The character of David is probably one of the best recent characters in recent cinema, in my opinion. Just, he's that good. He is the heart and soul of this movie. I keep saying, God. I'm trying to, remember the rest of the movie. Oh, there is one thing that will be very divisive with fans of this series in this movie, and that is that you finally get the alien origin story. And in my opinion, I think this was awesome. Like, to me, this was better than any fan fiction This was better than anything in like the whatever off-brand comic books or novels or whatever. This to me is the start of it all. And I'm going to make a separate video explaining more about this and explaining why things that are the way they are. You know, and it kind of explaining the ending of this movie. It's going to be a very spoilerish video, but I'm just going to say this much. I thought they knocked it out the park as far as that goes. But overall, I have to say that I like this movie better than Prometheus, and I like Prometheus, and I think this is better, and I rank it as the third best Alien movie behind the first two. I really did like it. And I know there's people that have mixed opinions, and I know some people are getting all bent out of shape and butthurt, but you got to realize with a franchise like this that has a fan base like this, like, people will get so butthurt and pissed off that things didn't go the way they want it to as a fan, or as the things they would have done as a fanboy. You know, you see the same shit on a much larger scale for Star Wars, you know, and stuff like that. But overall, as an entertaining movie, it did entertain me. It's not a perfect movie, but it was really good. I liked it. And like I said, if there's one thing, because I know Ridley Scott's making the follow-up like immediately after, if there's one thing that they need to do right to improve on this, is to make most of the characters more memorable and not just, you know, body bags, and to revert back to that's you know, the mix of CGI and animatronic suit Alien, because it's incredible how much better a man in a suit looks than the CGI version of a xenomorph. And if they want to answer some of those questions that Prometheus left on the table that weren't answered, I'd be happy with that. Otherwise, it's just kind of, you know, other than having to watch Prometheus in order to understand some of the stuff that's going on in this movie, then it renders Prometheus pointless. But you know what? At the end of the day, I really did like this. And if I was to give it a rating out of 10, I'd probably give it a 7.5. I enjoyed it. It's a fun movie. It's definitely worth a watch. So